Hey everyone, James here again, and today we're going to do something a little different. I recently had an experience that gave me a glimpse at the future of live music, and I'm going to tell you about it. So if you've been following our series of updates on the coronavirus and how it is impacting live music, then you already know that virtually every venue is at a standstill. There haven't been shows for over half a year, and there's no sign that that's going to change anytime soon. Certain countries around the world are starting to open up and bands are touring in parts of the world like China, but here in the US, there's just no touring and very little live music. Now, the one exception for the better part of the last half year has been drive-in concerts, and those we've covered in previous clips. That's where people pull into a drive-in theater in their car and then remain in or around their car for the duration of the event. They listen to the show through their car stereo, or in some cases through the amplification coming off the stage, and they don't really have a lot of interaction with anybody around them. It's a very isolated event, but again, it is better than nothing, and it's what's been working for a good amount of artists. In fact, they're still going on right now and probably will in parts of the country through the end of the year. Snow will change that for some people, of course, but that's just the way it is. Now, the other solution that people have found for the live music drought is by selling tickets in what they call pods, or fan pods, or concert pods. Basically, people buy tickets in groups of 2, 4, or 6, and they all sit together with their group 6 or more feet away from the next group of 2, 4, or 6 people. It's a pretty good solution because you get to go and hang out with the people that you came with, but not rub up against strangers, and feel a little bit closer to normalcy than a drive-in concert would allow, or no music at all. And I hadn't had the chance to go to one of these events. We've covered them. In fact, in the UK, they recently opened a venue that is nothing but fan pods, and you can watch that clip by clicking the link up here. But in the States, it's very rare. And I had the chance 2 weeks ago to go to Pelham, Tennessee to visit a newly constructed venue outside of the Caverns, a world famous venue that is literally inside a cave, where I saw Jason Isbell and the 400 unit perform to about 600 or 650 people. Which brings us to the whole point of this video, which is what that experience was like. And let me tell you, if this is what live music is like in the future, I will gladly pay extra to always have this experience. The fan pod experience cannot be overstated. It was so well done. So here's how the night went. When we got to the venue, we were waiting in a long line of cars of people to get in. 5 cars at a time were ushered up to a group of box office attendants. Each attendant was responsible for 1 car. That attendant would then scan your tickets and then take the temperature of everyone inside the vehicle. If your temperature was too high, a classic sign of COVID, then you would be forced to turn around and leave the venue. They also asked you all the normal COVID screening questions, which of course, you have to be responsible for being honest about, but I didn't see anyone get kicked out. Everyone had their temperature checked. We already felt a little more safe. We drove down the road, and from there we found a lot of parking attendants. I mean, far more than you would usually expect to see, who were directing people into where to park. They didn't put the cars too close to one another so that you could get out while wearing your mask and get chairs that you brought from home to take inside the venue. We walked through the grounds of the concert and we came to the security booth, where there were a few police officers and security staff waiting. Rather than stopping for a classic stopping frisk, they had us open up our coats or open up our purses and show them our chairs and just keep walking. Constant motion, never getting too close to anyone else, including the event staff. From there, we met up with another staff member who then asked us where our pod was located. We were, I think, G52 or something like that. So we told them the number, and they walked us through the venue using one-way paths to a pod that was roughly 6 or 7 inches bigger than 2 lawn chairs seated next to each other, which was perfect because we had a 2-person pod. So once we were inside that pod with our own chairs, which meant we didn't have to touch anything other than what we brought with us, we had a direct line of sight to the venue. And I'm going to throw a photo up here, which we took before they told us that we weren't allowed to take any pictures. So anything you see here, shh, let's keep it between us here on the channel. Anyways, so we sit down in our seats, and it's just the 2 of us. We're side by side, and at this point you are allowed to take off your mask. Now, my partner and I, we chose not to take off our masks for the duration of the event because we didn't feel comfortable doing so. But the people around us in other pods, the ones to our right and left, were immediately 2-person pods. In front and behind us were 4 or 6-person pods. A lot of those people chose to take off their masks. That's perfectly fine. We never got near them. If we wanted to have a concession during the show or buy merchandise, there's an app that we could open on our phone and look up what we wanted. So you could order a bucket of beers or a bottle of water, and it would be delivered by a staff member wearing both gloves and a mask in a bag, so there wasn't any direct contact contact other than when the person put it in the bag. So far, we haven't had to touch really anything other than what we order on site if we choose to order anything. And if we had ordered in advance before we even got to the venue, it would have been waiting at our pod. We wouldn't even have seen any staff members. Now I know what you're wondering, but what about the bathrooms? Because obviously people have to go to the bathroom, and that's the one point in the evening where you do run into other people. However, there were one-way roads throughout the venue, so that you couldn't be rubbing shoulders against people crossing paths. And on the way to the restroom, you had to wear your mask at all times outside of your pod. So the bathrooms were actually inside the cavern, and they used social distancing and limited stalls to make sure that there were never too many people in one place at one time, as well as constant cleaning measures. It was really refreshing to see because everyone seemed to be taking it seriously while also making sure everyone was having a good time. People were smiling when they chose to take off their masks, and people were singing along even if they were wearing the masks. And for the show itself, it was amazing. I was able to sit in a comfortable chair that I brought from home and watch a show from one of my favorite artists with nobody standing in the way. Nobody had cell phones out, so there was no screens in the way. Sound was beautiful. It was a lovely night outside, and we just enjoyed live music. And let me tell you, when you haven't seen live music in that way, or in really any way, for 6 months, the first time the amplifiers hit you and the bass bounces off of your bones, it almost brings a tear to your eye. Like, that's the best feeling in the world to me, is when good live music just washes over you. And I got to feel that for the first time in months alongside 600 plus other people who were all having a similar yet definitely unique experience. It was awesome. But then the night ended, and we had to figure out how to leave the venue while still maintaining the sense of safety that had been pretty much in place throughout the event, and they came up with a genius solution. Starting at the back of the venue, security guards would release the pods by row. So only so many people were getting up at a time, and everyone else just kind of waited in their area until they were excused. And when we made our way to our car without being around a big crowd of people, got into our car, and got out of the venue without ever hitting traffic or any of those common signs of a classic concert. So we were able to get the full live music experience, an uninterrupted view of our favorite musician performing songs that we love without once fearing for our safety. We never worried about getting sick, though I will say we did take COVID tests after we returned home, and thankfully they were negative. But if this is the way of the future, where we bring our own chairs if you want to have a chair, and you have a designated space that is spaced away from everybody else at the venue, and you can see your favorite artist perform the songs that you love, I'm okay with that. I mean, it's not going to be the same for heavy metal artists or punk bands or artists that really want you to move around and mosh and things like that. That's obviously an element that would be missing from this pod experience. But for a large number of performers, pop, rock, and so forth, there are so many opportunities in the fan pod experience that really made me feel that even if COVID lasts a lot longer than we all want it to, which I think is already the case. I mean, we would all love to see venues everywhere open with touring bands on the road again, but we don't know when that's going to happen. It may be spring 2021, it may be summer, it may be fall, it may be 2022, it could be 2024 for all we know. But what I know for sure is that live music will continue. There will be people who find ways to make it happen, and not only make it happen, but do so safely in a way that keeps the fun and wonderful experiment that is engaging with art in a crowd alive. I never felt any worries throughout the night of this performance, and that is thanks in part to the planning of the event, as well as the staff at the Caverns in Pelham, Tennessee, as well as Jason Isbell for working so hard to make sure that he could host an event that would be safe for everyone. And yes, it did come at a cost. I think tickets were about $125 per person in our pod, which is going to be out of the reach of some people. We have to figure out a solution for that, but all in all, if you can afford the pod experience, go for it. You will not regret it. Now I have a little bit of big news coming. We're going to change the venue of the video one more time. We're actually going to move into another room here at HQ in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out for that. And if you haven't done so already, please click the subscribe button down below. It would help us out so much. We've been doing this channel for over 2 years now, and we've really got that forward momentum that all channels ultimately hope for, but we need your help to keep it going. So if you haven't done so already, please take a moment and click the subscribe button down below. And if you have, well then, high five to you. Thank you so much for supporting us. And I want to leave you with this one small request. If you do nothing else, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it.